going to be a great game day atmosphere.
I know we've got a great home environment, and it'll be a fun environment for sure.
Welcome to Know Your Foe this week. We have John Kurtz out there in Kansas representing the Wildcats, the other Wildcats. This is something we're going to have to battle all year long to make sure that there's a clear definition between the two schools. John, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great, Saul. Thanks for having me, man.
We appreciate you jumping on. Obviously, let's just get right into it. Both these teams somewhat, inaccurate, kind of inconsistent. And, from our perspective, obviously on this side, Noah Fafita and company, great performance in week one, especially with T-Mac. Not so much in week two, but the defense flipped the script too. So it's all over the place. For K-State, obviously, you just came out of a nail biter against Tulane. What's the feel around the program right now?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I feel like in some ways it's the same story for both teams, right? Just pretty inconsistent. You're wondering what exactly you're going to get after the first 2 weeks. For K-State, like week one, I think the thought, first of all, going into the season was, look, there's a lot of hype around Avery Johnson, rightfully so. He's got incredible talent. Go look at his first touchdown pass on Saturday against Tulane if you want to see evidence of that. But he's also been pretty inconsistent. And, the hype got built really high for him. But I think most of us realistically thought the offense will probably be behind the defense to start the season. Like the defense is typically very good. They have an excellent coaching staff. Chris Kleiman's a defensive guy. They had a great secondary coming back this year, and you thought the defense will have to carry them a bit while the offense figures it out with new starting quarterback, new offensive coordinator, pretty new offensive line. There will be some kinks that will have to be worked out there. And that's how it played out in week one. UT Martin, FCS team, a good FCS team, but an FCS team nonetheless. The defense completely dominated, allowed less than 40 yards rushing. They just look great. Totally lights out the entire day. And the offense was inconsistent up and down. Well, week two, you got pretty much the same thing out of the offense. Slow start, bad first half, much better second half, and started to see some positive things there. But the defense was just leaking like crazy. And the concern now is like, okay, was this blip on the radar screen, some miscommunications, or is the defense actually not nearly as good as we thought? And this is going to be a big problem all year. I think the part that's hard to decipher, is this a good thing or a bad thing, is that like receivers weren't just open for Tulane. Like they were beating guys one-on-one in coverage and getting open. It was K-State was blowing assignments in a zone and a guy would be high school wide open. Mario Williams, who's a USC transfer playing for Tulane, he's got nobody within 10 yards of him. So they made it pretty easy on Darian Mensah, the redshirt freshman quarterback there. So I guess I look at that and say, maybe that's good because, hey, if you get your communication right, if you simplify some things, maybe that was the issue from a coaching standpoint, then you can shore that up pretty quick, as opposed to, hey, you just don't have the dudes on the outside and they're getting toasted one-on-one. But I don't know. It was pretty jarring to see because K-State does a great job with the secondary, and they've churned out a lot of pros in their secondary lately. And I know inside the program, they feel like they have some more guys that are going to go to the NFL back there right now. So that's a huge concern to me heading into this week, quite obviously, with, I think at the very least a Biletnikoff finalist on the other side there.
Yeah, you mentioned him, and I do want to get to him in a second, T-Mac. But obviously, DJ Giddens has been getting the bulk of the carries for you guys, but you also have Dylan Edwards, who supplants him as well. I think that's a pretty solid 1-2 punch. In terms of their productivity on that side of the ball, is the recipe to try and force Avery Johnson to throw right now, just because of that's probably the weakest of his skill sets?
I definitely would. If I'm Arizona, that's what I would try to do. Like K-State always wants to run the ball no matter what. And DJ Giddens is a very good running back. I think a little bit overshadowed because, one, he was the guy that came after Deuce Vaughn, and that's just a tough act to follow. But statistically, DJ is going to leave K-State in all likelihood as the second leading rusher in school history behind Darren Sproles. So, he's put together an impressive career. And Dylan Edwards, he's averaging over 9 yards a touch right now. He's only touched the ball 12 times on offense. They need to get it to him more, and Chris Kleiman admitted that in their press conference on Monday. So they have a really good two-headed monster at running back for sure. Avery Johnson has made some big-time throws, and he's got a live arm and a great arm. Again, I referenced that first touchdown pass he threw against Tulane. backpedaling, moving to his right, throwing back across his body at a weird arm angle and zipping it in between a couple of guys to the back of the end zone. Just, I mean, it was like a Patrick Mahomes looking kind of throw. But then he had 2 wide open deep balls that he missed during the game. So then he came back and hit a huge one when they needed one late to Keegan Johnson. So it's inconsistent. I mean, he's a true sophomore making his 3rd start. So that's definitely right now the recipe, is that you hope that the inconsistency continues and take your chances there and load up and stop the run. If I were Brent Brennan in Arizona, that's definitely what I would be doing.
Obviously, if you look, too many people look at the box scores and they just make their assumptions based off of that, right? And if you looked at Arizona's box score, it would tell you 2 completely different stories between game 1 and game 2. Obviously, T-Mac having 304 yards, setting a single game school record for Arizona, and then following it up the next week, not really looking like himself. 2 catches, 11 yards. Not it's obviously not world beating, but he is considered one of the best wide receivers in the country. You guys have somebody there in the backfield in Jacob Parrish, who I believe is one of your better cornerbacks and could face T-Mac one-on-one. That's a significant height difference in 5'10" to 6'4", maybe even 6'5". What are you expecting K-State to do to try and limit the amount of touches that T-Mac can get?
You kind of outlined the problem there. Like, K-State does not have, for instance, Julius Brents, who they had a couple of years ago, who was a 2nd-round pick off of the Big 12 championship team, who was like 6'3", 6'4", with very long arms. And that's why he was a 2nd-round pick of the Indianapolis Colts. They have 2 really good cover corners. I mean, Jacob Parrish is sticky. He's a great cover corner, but he is, he's small. He's going to be giving up a lot of height there. Keenan Garber is their other starting corner that they feel really good about. He's bulked up a lot. He's much stronger this year, but he's again a guy that's not overly tall, and they don't really have anybody at corner that can match up like that. I do wonder if you'll see Marquise Siegel on him a decent amount throughout the game, who's a safety, and he's the guy that the coaches definitely feel like is an NFL player. Had a really good year last year. He just dropped a bunch of interceptions, but was always in the right place at the right time. Would have gotten a lot more ink had he hung on to more of those interceptions last year. So I would think he probably becomes a part of the strategy. He's got a little more size and he's got a lot more length. He's definitely got longer arms. And so I think that could be a potential solution there. But honestly, look, I don't know ball like the K-State defensive coaches do, but I look at it and say, like, I would just have somebody over the top at all times on him. I mean, I would not feel very comfortable leaving him one-on-one with anybody, basically, even though I do think that K-State has a very good secondary. I mean, I guess it depends on how much stock you put into guys like this, but I know, for instance, Phil Steele had ranked the K-State secondary first in the Big 12 in the offseason. So on paper, it is pretty good, but they've definitely shown their warts so far this year, and they do not have anybody that can match up from a pure size standpoint.
Yeah, I think the common theme between both squads is it does not matter what anybody said in the preseason, because we all have no idea what to expect on Friday, right? I think this is the microcosm of don't put all your eggs into one basket when you're talking about hyping up teams, who should be championship favorites. Nobody knows. Year after year, it's just so wildly unpredictable, especially with the transfer portal and development and who you're going to lose and all that good stuff. When you're talking about Kansas State, obviously Chris Kleiman's done a phenomenal job there since taking over their development, their processes, and getting to a Big 12 championship a couple years ago, winning the Big 12 championship a season ago, beating TCU. This year it seems weird to say, like, off of what we've seen so far, that if they didn't make it to the Big 12 championship or won the Big 12 championship, it would be an utter failure. I don't believe so. I know K-State fans might feel otherwise, just like Arizona fans would feel otherwise. Arizona fans think we should win the championship or bust, right? But how realistic do you think it is right now in this moment, before we've even gotten to Friday, to really make that assessment?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to improve a lot from what we've seen the first 2 weeks.
Both teams.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Now, that doesn't mean that it can't happen. I mean, I think the talent is certainly there for both squads. In K-State's case, I tended to look at this, and I think a lot of people would, like, especially in the old days of college football where we didn't have the transfer portal and guys leaving all the time. You would have looked at this roster if it were, say, in like 2016 and said, okay, they're going to be pretty good this year, but like the year is going to be next year. Like next year, with what you'd bring back, this roster is going to be loaded. Guys will start to have more experience because K-State has a lot of young talent on the roster that's a little more unproven. And Avery Johnson's very emblematic of that. Obviously, he's much more high profile. But for instance, like at defensive end, they feel like they've got a loaded room there that's as deep as any that they've ever had. But it's a lot of guys who just don't have much production under their belt. So you're looking at that and saying, all right, give them a year to get experience here. Man, that'll be great. Like Dylan Edwards could be your primary back next year. He's already gained 15 pounds since coming over from Colorado, actually having a nutrition program and a strength program and like things more organized here. You give him a year in this system.
Was that shade, John? Was that a little shade?
It's a little bit of shade. I mean, that's definitely something that's been spoken about. Like Dylan Edwards told everybody he gained 15 pounds the other day. And I can just tell you from hearing things behind the scenes. Yeah, it sounds like the nutrition program was not, they weren't doing a whole lot of that at Colorado. But, Jace Brown is a really good young wide receiver that they had. That was a true freshman last year, kind of burst onto the scene. So just the way the roster set up, you were like, man, like they would be really good next year. But the problem is like college football now, because of the portal, one, everybody's more incentivized to be like, well, you got to win now because you could go get players in the portal. So there's no excuse. And then two, you don't know what's going to happen year after year. Do you lose somebody unexpectedly? How does that change things? But I guess I say all that to say, to me, they're still a little more on the unproven side as opposed to like a Utah and Oklahoma State, who to me heading into the season, I just felt a little more comfortable with because they felt like they had more returning proven production all across the board. So I felt like K-State was definitely kind of a tier 1B Big 12 school this year. I predicted them to go 9-3. I think a lot of fans, you're right, definitely are like, look, Avery Johnson's the guy. This is the highest rated quarterback recruit they've had since Josh Freeman. Of course, we're ready to roll this year. We're going to be awesome. To me, it's probably overdoing it a little bit if you're going to say Big 12 championship game or bust.
Yeah. Again, you just mentioned Utah. I mean, Cam Rising gets injured, and then that whole team looks completely different in the second half against Baylor. Couldn't even score. And so, again, from week to week, you have no idea what to expect, but you can expect more from Know Your Foe. That's John Kurtz. John, tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, appreciate that. If you're a Big 12 fan out there, I'm really pushing my Big 12 newsletter. It's called Open for Business, like what we hear Brett Yormark say all the time, but ofbnews.com to sign up for that. I'm filtering through all the SEC and Big 10 crap that none of us want to read. Like you read about college football these days, it feels like everything comes through that lens. This is just Big 12 news, what matters to the league. It's free, straight to your inbox multiple times a week. So ofbnews.com to sign up for that. I'm on YouTube doing live shows Wednesdays and Sundays. Those are a really good time. If you want to pop in for those, just my name, JohnKurtz. And then you can follow me on Twitter. It's just at JL Kurtz to find me on Twitter.
There you go. He's one of the best in the business, representing K-State. John Kurtz. John, we'll see you out there. Actually, before you do go, what's the one spot, if you got an out-of-towner coming into town, what's the one spot that you got to go? Whether it be food, bar, doesn't matter. Just one spot you have to go check out.
Well, I was asked about seafood in Manhattan, the seafood offerings in Manhattan.
We do not talk about seafood and Mike Luke in the same sentence ever again.
I was like, you're going to be disappointed if that's what you're coming to Manhattan for, but you will not be disappointed if you go. I would say, like, if you're looking for game day vibe, like experiencing the town and the atmosphere and what Manhattan's really about, the college town thing, Taco Lucha is where I would send you, which is in Aggieville. Excellent street tacos. You have to try it. I know it sounds weird, but trust me, it's amazing. It is like the delicacy of Manhattan that you'll hear people talk about. The Chipotle raspberry bean dip at Taco Lucha is the thing to get. I also, if you are a beer drinker, get a Nancy, which is a beer with some pineapple juice, another specialty that they have there. But it's in Aggieville, which is the big bar district. Everything's concentrated in like a 2-block radius, bunch of bars. That's where you'll really, truly get a feel of the town. If you're looking for something a little more fancy, I'd send you to like Bourbon and Baker, which is a really nice like tapas place that's fancier. But Taco Lucha is definitely the first place. You want to experience a good college town and the vibes of Manhattan, that's where to go.
I mean, John, like you just gave me flashbacks to when I was there 10 years ago. I'm looking forward to that because that's right across the street from Tanner's. Tanner's is also another spot that a lot of people go to. If you go out there, folks, I'm telling you, the night before the game, they do a pep rally, and you've never seen anything like it because the band will go into bars and play. It's probably the most insane thing I've ever seen or been a part of. So, John, thank you so much again. We'll see you out there in Manhattan.
Yeah, safe travels. Sounds good.
We all silly like the mayor.